over to Instagram. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am clicking over to Instagram to go live there. It says that I can go live. There we go. Go live. I think I'm going live. Awesome. Hey, Lorraine, how's my sound?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's great. I had such crappy sound yesterday. I did this like spontaneous welcome everyone to the Sidewalk Talk birthday party because I was too nervous about recording something super vulnerable. And then I went live and the sound didn't pick up. So then I was like, oh man. Well, hi.
Hello, how are
We're gonna
you?
just, I'm all right. How are you? I'm like settled in now. You're my last, it's midnight here. So you're my last person for the day. And you have lipstick on for me. Look at you. Mm.
Tinted chapstick.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. Okay. Can we like tell people who you are and tell them what you do and where you are in the world to start with?
Okay. I am Lorraine. I am located in the US in Georgia. I am a middle school counselor and I don't know. I love my job. What else do
But
you need to know?
your accent doesn't quite sound like someone from Georgia.
No, 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 no. I just moved to Georgia. My anniversary is coming up next month. No, in a couple months. In about 3 months. It'll be my 3-year anniversary. I come here by way of New York, born and raised in New York City.
New York girl.
New York girl.
And
First gen
why'd you move to Georgia?
for love.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm teasing you. All right, so the theme is friendship.
Okay.
I'm going to say all
Let's
kinds of nice, funny things about you. But first of all, I just want to ask you, uh, how did you find Sidewalk Talk, and how the heck did we become friends from your perspective?
whew, okay, how I found Sidewalk Talk is I used to work in career services at Hofstra University in New York for about 10 years before I moved to Georgia. So, students would come in, looking for jobs and internships, all that stuff. And one young lady came in who was a psychology major and wanted to do an internship in psychology. And psychology is not like business where you can go to a bank. So, it was like doing a Google search and we came upon Sidewalk Talk New York, read a little bit about it, and it kind of stuck with me. I like the whole idea of just sitting down, listening to people. It kind of piqued my interest because, I love to hear people's stories. And when I went home, I did more Google search and, found who you were, found that, you were interviewed by CBS and, you were on the morning show and all this other stuff. And it was cool. And that was before the pandemic happened. And then once the pandemic happened, I had started following Sidewalk Talk on Instagram. And every Wednesday, you would do a live. And I tuned in every Wednesday during my lunch hour, So,
You, me, and Anthony.
yep, I was going to say, and Anthony from San Francisco, the three of us,
Now
we
he's
were
from San
consistent.
Diego.
Oh, he's in San Diego. Okay. If you're out there, Anthony. Hey, Anthony. So yeah, we every Wednesday we would just like, chat in, that sort of thing. And then it was May when the murder of George Floyd happened and you asked how were we doing in New York. And then you had suggested the three of us, myself, you, and Anthony, get on a Zoom call. So, and then that's where our friendship kind of blossomed from there. Similar background experiences, even though we are totally opposite ends of the United States. And, just connection on that level. It was like really cool. I always call you like my spirit animal because we have so many things in common and yet we are so different. So, and I remember distinctly, I was having like a really tough time with work, during the whole George Floyd time. And you had left me a message. I had sent you an Instagram direct message. And for some reason, on this particular day, you had answered the message. And then I answered you back and you called me and
Mm.
you said, "It sounds like you're really struggling." And I said, "I am." And you said in your Traci Rubel voice, "What I hear you saying is," and I'm like, "Oh," and you really helped me through that. And I think that started, you know, our friendship. We're both, you do therapy, I do counseling. You're, I call it Silicon Valley. I'm not, so you give me a different perspective on how to, you know, different perspective on how to think of things. And, I tell you about like middle school kids who I work with. So, yeah.
It's funny that we're recording this because you're more formal than we talk one on one. I mean, of course, because
Of
people
course.
watching. Yeah,
Right.
we don't have
I
a
have
lot
to
of people
mind,
watching, so
look,
it's no big
I
deal.
have to mind my manners in front of guests.
Oh, I was just thinking about this before we were getting on. I'm like, oh man, do I talk to Lorraine about how her daughter always calls me Miss Traci? And thought, oh.
You can talk about that. You can talk about that.
I wanted to ask you why. So we did another thing that you didn't mention, which was you, me, and Larice did the Naked Three for a
The
while.
naked three for a while. Yes. Yes. Well,
And
you said talk about our friendship. You didn't say talk about our work stuff.
well, is Naked Three friendship or no? Do you want me to leave
Yeah,
it out?
it's both. No, don't leave it out. It's both, but it didn't, that piece didn't occur to me. But yes, we did the naked three. That was fun. I like
I
that.
just felt like it did something for our friendship. I think that us committing to something and we were spending at the same time every week together, live in conversation. And we would
Mm-hmm.
usually get on a little bit early and then
Mm-hmm.
hang around a little bit after. And so it started to create a sense of, and then when you have a third person there, you start to see how you interact with other people. And so I got to know you more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm curious why listening is so I mean, why you think listening is relevant and important from your perspective, not my perspective. Like, do you think it's important?
I
Sorry,
think
it's
it's
a dumb
important
question.
because I mean, the little girl in me, people would always tell me how nosy I was, but I liked hearing people's stories. Like from when I was a little kid, my mom said to me the other day, she was like, "Oh, even when you were in kindergarten, you could name all the kids in your class and tell me all their brothers and sisters' names." So it was just a thing. But I think a lot of people don't feel heard. So I think listening is important, and not just listening to speak, but listening for understanding.
Mm.
There's a huge difference in that. I think most people, I shouldn't generalize, but a lot of people just listen to then now speak and get their point across, as opposed to really truly understanding what the person says. And I also think context is important. I tell my daughter all the time, like, while we all speak English, words and interpretation is different, for
Mm.
different people. You know, like somebody might say, "I was upset." And then somebody might take, well, like, "Oh, you get upset," where somebody else might be like, "Oh my goodness, what are you upset about?" So I feel like words are interpretive, and I think that people are not heard, and people don't take the time to truly listen.
Mm.
And it's when people feel heard, almost in this day and age, they're surprised, in the smallest of interactions, going to the supermarket and saying to somebody, be like, "Oh, you look like you're having a rough day, feel better, keep your head up," that kind of thing. It's like, oh, they feel seen, be like, "Oh, that was a tough customer, sending you good vibes, girl," that kind of thing. So I think people, they just want to be seen and heard. I think that is really important.
I've never asked you this before, but why do you think we're not doing it anymore? Because it feels like we listen to be offended or listen to get shit done.
I th- I think it's so many different things. I think people are out of practice of listening.
Mm.
You know, if you think about, like, through the generations, right? Like when my grandparents were alive, when they were kids, they listened to the radio,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now we watch TV. Now a lot of kids are. doing this, they're not looking at the person's facial expression. You know, it's funny, like a lot of kids, I work with middle school kids and they miss a lot of social cues. Just recently, a kid said, um, he was like walking past me. I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do that. And another kid goes, look what you did. And he was really kind of teasing him. And the other kid got upset. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, calm down. He's just teasing you. Don't take him on, that kind of thing. But I think he just missed that social cue because like he wasn't looking him in the eye. And, you know, just I think we're out of practice. And I think that when people aren't heard or feel unheard, they get louder. So then it turns into an argument. And then also, what we watch on TV or what's given to be watched on TV is different than what it was, at least when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was shows like Touched by an Angel and, Highway to Heaven and The Cosby Show. And,
A
now there's a
little
lot.
pristine.
Yeah. And now, like kids today would be like, oh, that's so fake. But then now what they're showing you is like Horrible Neighbor and Car Wars and really showing a lot of angst, and a lot of like this
Aggression.
aggression and not getting along kind of thing. So I think that all plays into the not being heard piece of it, right? So I think it's a multifaceted thing.
That's
And
really
I think
interesting. So, like, kids are mimicking what they see on TV from your perspective?
from my perspective, yeah, you know, like one of the kids, you know, she goes, "This is Bad Girls Club." I'm like, "No, it's actually not." And if there's a fight in school, what do the kids do? They pull out their phones to record. So it's like, yeah, I feel this eighth grade class is leaving in like 3 weeks, and I because I started with them from sixth, seventh, and eighth, I'm kind of mulling over like having like a little piece of their graduation moving up ceremony to say to them, like, you guys taught me how to be a middle school counselor while you guys learned how to be in middle school, right? Like, I finished,
Mm.
you guys are my first graduating class. And part of me wants to say to them, don't take pleasure in seeing other people's demise. I feel like it changes their game, their brain chemistry. And it's like, how do you figure out what joy is? That's just my
Mm.
perspective. Now I could be totally wrong, but that's just how I see it.
Where do you think they're getting this from, though? Taking pleasure in other people's demise?
All over the place. TV shows,
I think grown-ups are
YouTube.
doing this too, though, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. They see it around them. They see it
Yeah.
around them. And I think there's a lot of lack of accountability, both being taught to students and adult not taking accountability. You know, just in something as simple as the rule is no cell phones in school.
Hmm.
A kid will literally pick up the phone, be on it, and I'm like, get off the phone. I'm on the phone with my mom. I'm like, your mom is making you break the rule. Get off the phone. And then I will have the mother come up and say, who told my child to get off the phone? Like, that's the rule. Or the kids will say, oh, Miss Messiah, you be doing too much. I'm like, they pay me to do too much. Like, that's literally my job. You know, it's literally my job, you know. Or when they get mad at me and I'm like, why do you get mad at me when I tell you to follow the rules? Like, why is that upsetting to you? Like, these are the rules. This is a school and you should be in class. Like, it's real simple, so it's the lack of accountability. Like, what? What? It's not a big deal, So it's a lot. They see it at home, they see it on TV. There's a lot of reinforcement of negativity.
Mm. I'm just like really having a good time listening to you and learning. I'm taking notes. I wish I were friends. We were friends when my kids were young. Do you want to know why I became friends with you?
Yes, let's hear.
Do you want some
Wait, let me
warm
just tell you
fuzzy?
this really quick.
Okay, tell
So,
me.
and I know you always
And
hate when I
we
say,
have no one, no one's watching right now either, so I feel so relaxed because we're
oh,
doing
okay.
one.
So the the Tracy Rubel who was interviewed. I'm like, she runs this big thing. She reached out to me. And I know you hate when I say that, but I felt like the first time you reached back out, like honored, because I know what it takes to run a nonprofit. I knew that, you were in private practice. So it's like, I get all of that and the busyness around that. So for you to take the time and reach out and then us becoming friends was just a bonus. So.
Well, it's not like I just want to say, don't anyone else troll me on Instagram and think I'm going to reach out. um, Although I have met some other friends through Instagram, I do secretly enjoy trusting my gut a little bit. And I just had a gut about you. I'm going to tell you my favorite thing. I mean, this is not a you're not going to cry, so don't get the tissues out. But
Look,
um,
just in case.
no, you just tell it straight.
It's a
And you know what
blessing and a
happened?
curse.
Well, I'm the same way. I remember in junior high school, friends of mine said, "That mouth is going to get you in trouble, Tracy." But the thing is that when I'm around you, I just know you're not going to BS me, so I feel really, really, really safe. I know that if you're pissed at me, you're going to tell me. I know that if you're needing something, we're working on that one. I think sometimes you're a tough cookie and don't ask. I think you're really good at asking for help, though. Now, don't you think?
Now, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You've turned a corner. Are you doing your hair?
Yeah, because
I
it's
do
like kicking up. I'm like, why is it doing that? Okay.
it. I like your hair down. You usually wear it up, so it's nice down. Um, yeah, and then I do have to say that as we started talking about our childhoods, I'm like, what? There was just a shorthand. Like I could say something to you, and I don't think it was disrespectful. Like, oh, I already know your business, but our experiences. And I'm like, you're a black woman from Trinidad and I'm a white chick from Southern California. And how do we get each other so much?
On
It
so
kind of
many different levels.
it blows my mind. And it's such a comfort sometimes because I'm like, ugh, I do not have to give all this backstory to her. And then
The
you and then the
context is there.
And the other thing that's happened is you don't do the Traci Rubel on CBS Sidewalk talk with me. You'll like say, what I think you should do is, or that's the wrong decision. You need to do, like I value that. I remember, well, you always have this weird feeling. Tekka has this with me too, by the way. She feels my vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I've
and
told you that.
when I'm not doing well, I'm like, what is it? How do you know? And it's really great that you're on the other side of the world because if I'm anxious at 3 a.m, I can freaking call you. It's terrible. And you said to me, this is such a good piece of advice. I'm a therapist. And
Okay, let me hear.
I love getting advice that's just practical for people that are not therapists. You said, get up out of your chair.
Yes.
And I think about it and I do it every time. Like when I
Yes.
start getting in my head and doing the but this person's going to think the worst of me because for those watching, I am neurotic AF. Um, I go, Lorraine would say to get up and get out of my chair and go for a walk.
Yeah,
Because
I
then
call it the hamster wheel of destruction because it's like you're just going like this and this and this. It's the physicality of breaking that cycle. Just boop, just change that brain chemistry. Yeah.
every time. It's like the cheapest therapy there is to get up out of your chair when you're anxious and go for a walk. I mean, I know it can't solve all your problems, but you know what has helped me is when I do it at the front end of a little, I call it uh, something I can't remember the name. It's too late, but it's when I go into these spirals. If I
Mm,
get up out of my chair at the front end of it, by the end of the walk, it's gone. If I like perseverate and go on and on and on in my,
mm.
then I'm screwed. The walk doesn't help. Then I got to go do some boo-hooing and crying.
Yeah. Crying helps. People think that crying is a bad thing. Crying is actually good. It's your body's way of like getting out all that emotional dirt from you. When people are like, have a stuffed upper lip and don't cry, you know, I've had a tough couple of weeks and I have cried like the big ugly cry where the kids are like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" That kind of thing, and I'm like, "I'm just having a bad day." I've been having a lot of back issues, my back's been hurting, and just some days it's just I'm not capable, and they're just, "Are you all right?" So letting them like, I think in our generation when we were raised, like, we both have like very stoic kind of parents who didn't show emotion. And like, I had to work on that through years and years of therapy, being comfortable enough to show emotion and even showing emotion at work,
Mm.
because you're working with kids all day. Sometimes you don't get a pass for having a bad day. You might get a day or two, but for the most part, I let the kids see when I'm upset. I let them see, they see me when I'm mad. If I yell at them, I'm like, "Don't make me use my mom voice. I'm at work," that kind of thing. One of the teachers they're taking advantage of, like, because she's so soft and she's so sweet, and she's like, "Cut it out." And I'm like, "Why is she yelling at you? Cut it out." That kind of thing. So they've seen all my range of emotions, and I feel like that's healthy. And the other thing is that people don't allow kids to be mad. Like,
Mm.
sometimes kids are mad, like they're in middle school, their emotions are like all over the place. And I have an anger stick in my office. I don't know if I ever told you this story. I have
Mm-mm.
an anger stick in my office. It's just rolled up tight paper. And when they're mad, I'm like, "Just beat up the desk." And sometimes the kids are like, "No, I don't want to." I'm like, "No, beat up the desk. It's very cathartic." And then one kid, she's like a little bitty thing. I said, "Try beating up the desk." She goes, "This works. I feel better." I'm like, "It does." So it's just the crying, it's getting all that heaviness off of you.
Well, you and I talked about this. I shared a little bit from my grief that I think that I'm finding that we have a lot to grieve, us people, and that a lot of the other mental health symptoms, if you could just really grieve what happened. And you sort of said to me, "Oh, Traci, you didn't grieve what happened in your childhood." I think I spent some time in therapy analyzing what happened in my childhood,
Mm,
understanding it,
mm.
and maybe grieving some parts of it. But yeah, I'm in the boohoo crying every day thing too right now. And I got to tell you, Lorraine, it feels way better than anxiety.
Do
I
you
just
feel
feel,
like so emotionally exhausted after a good cry, though? Do you feel depleted?
I don't feel depleted. I feel tenderhearted. I feel
Okay.
so in touch with my heart because when I'm anxious, I'm all up here. I'm not in my body. I don't feel particularly kind to myself or to anyone else. Yeah. But when I really grieve, like, and I don't mean I think there's a feeling sorry for yourself thing. And I want to be clear that the kind of grief I'm doing, when I start to feel it, I cry. And then I end up feeling like this grief for the world. Like I recognize that, oh, this thing that I'm crying at, this pain, others have this pain too. Like it gets very holy very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that doesn't make me tired. That makes me feel connected to something bigger.
Mm. Okay. So for me, the feeling is different. So after, like, I feel emotionally like depleted, like I can't do anything, and I just need
Mm,
to like have a good night's sleep. Like, I need to
mm,
sleep for like 8, 10 hours. And then usually like that morning, I just have like such moments of clarity.
mm.
Like the first thing in the morning is like, all right, these are the good ideas that are coming my way. So for me, it is definitely, yeah, it's emotionally depleting, but it's also, I want to circle back to what you said. I think the world in general,
Hmm.
individually and on a macro level, we are grieving and we're not in touch with that grief.
Oh,
We
girl,
had
yeah,
over 1 million people die of COVID.
I know.
Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
When I first started working in the middle school, it was 2021. So we were like really kind of coming out of COVID. New York was kind of coming out of it. We were just going back to work 2 days a week kind of thing. Georgia, they were still wearing masks in schools every day. And kids would be like, yeah, my grandma died. Yeah, my dad died. Yeah, my uncle died. Da, 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 da. And it was like daily. So if I had 700 kids in the building, right? And there's 180 days of school, at least 80 kids came and told me that somebody in their immediate family died. We're not talking like a cousin and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we've addressed that.
Mm.
People are like, oh, let's get back to normal. And we have not
Mm.
addressed that. And a lot of times I have in my office, it's called the anger iceberg. You've ever heard of this? Sylvia Duckworth, I think, made the picture. Um, so it's the line of water, and then you see the tip of the iceberg, and it says anger, and then underneath the water is like
All the
anxiety,
feelings.
frustration, all the feelings, right? And sometimes when like if I'm in a supermarket or one of the kids are like going off or the mother is going off, I'm thinking to myself, who hurt you? What's wrong?
Um,
You know, I had a kid like a couple of months ago. She was suspended for fighting. And I called the mom. I'm like, hey, your daughter got into a fight. She's going to be suspended. Da, 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 da. She's like, I can't think about that right now. My husband's in the hospital. He had a heart attack. She got to go home on the bus. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I've asked the kid, I'm like, how's your dad doing? She's like, he's fine. That's
mm.
it. He's fine. And I feel like as a society, people are just toughing it out.
Mm.
They're just toughing it out. They're not asking for help, at least not mental health
Mm.
services.
Mm.
You know. Even for myself, with these back problems that I've been having, one of my coworkers suggested, why don't you get intermittent FMLA? And I'm like, you think so? She's like, yes. You don't want to lose your job. Like
What is
if you
FMLA?
intermittent FMLA is Family Medical Leave Act.
Oh, okay.
So you're basically covered, like you can't lose your job for calling out too many days sick.
Got it.
You're covered. You have a doctor's note that you have like certain flare ups, certain times a month. So it's not like continuous, like not you're going to be out for 3 months on maternity leave, but it's intermittent. So, like, I get back treatments twice a week. So I leave an hour early twice a week to go get the back treatments done. And if I have a doctor's appointment, I just bring a note to say, I went to the doctor or something like that.
Mm.
But then my job won't be in jeopardy because I took too many sick days, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, really, you think I need it? Because I was like coming to work, making my doctor's appointments after work, and it was just a lot. She was like, no, you could do it during the day. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you're trying to do everything the right way, whereas you have these resources that, people don't avail themselves to.
Yeah, there's like a connection between the two things that you said. I'm kind of making this connection about toughen out grief and toughen out your back. And in a way, we actually could just attend to both of them, is what I hear you saying. You
Mm-hmm.
know, why not? I share something about grief?
Sure.
I I have this weird thought that I really appreciate. First of all, you had an impact on me when we were talking about the pandemic because you're right, and I didn't even think about that. Like that we have just skipped. We talked about how it impacted us, but we didn't ever talk about the grief. Like that, a lot of people lost people; they died. We didn't talk about the heart. And this is the thing. I think about all that's going on in politics in the world right now. I think about George Floyd's murder and racism in the United States. I think about war. I mean, you know, I could be being incredibly idealistic here, but as I'm moving through this grief, and I told you it gets to this place where I get really tenderhearted and I feel this level of, see, I almost feel like I'm going to cry when I'm going to say this. So weird. Every time I talk about it, I feel grief for the world.
Mm.
I really do. And I just wonder what would happen if we could sit and just really leave identity out and just sit down and fucking cry. Oh, I cursed. I'm sorry. And cried. I forgot that we were doing a record. And
Look, we're recording live.
Sorry, guys.
It's not just us.
And really cry together. Like, what would that do if we like really, like, I get teary again as soon as I go inside and I picture it, I get really teary. Like, and not try to fix anything for a minute, not try to solve, not try to figure it out, not try to have an opinion about any of it, but just to cry that this is painful, the state that the world is in.
It is. It is painful. I can't tell you how, like, so many years of therapy, right? So you already know that place. But I can't tell you how many times, like, a kid just looks, I'm like, what's wrong? You need a hug? And they just hug me. Sometimes that's all and it's like they're in so much pain they can't even articulate it, but a hug always makes them feel better. You know, it's just sometimes people just need a hug. And they got their parents yelling at them. Like one of the kids, she just
You're
her mom.
You're such a great human.
Thank you.
You're just so like all New York on the outside and just such a teddy bear on the inside. I just think it's so sweet.
Wait, I want to read you this funny thing.
Yeah, do it.
It just so identifies who I am. So years ago, while I was working on the college campus, the supervisor wanted the students to do surveys of how their appointment went. So of course it's supposed to be anonymous, but we would always go back and look and see who wrote it. Okay, listen. The session helped me understand how my skills, past experiences can be applied to my career. 5, strongly agree. The session prepared me to take next steps toward my immediate goals. 4, any other comments? She was very helpful, a little aggressive, but genuinely wanted to help. I was like, oh my God, she gets me. And I screenshotted it and I keep it.
I just had a couple, and the woman said to me, she goes, Traci, you are the most interesting combination of tender and tough I've ever met.
Yes, and that's why I think we get each other, because people, like, on first glance, I think people think that I'm mean, right? I'm like this mean New Yorker, I'm very abrasive and gruff and tell it like it is. But at the same time, like, I think I'm the epitome of tough love. You know what I mean? Like, the kids know, especially the 8th graders who are leaving. Every time I see one of them, I'm like, you're going to miss me? They're like, yeah, Miss Messiah, give me a hug. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I've yelled at these kids, got at them, all that stuff, but they still know, like, my heart. And yeah, so they know my heart. They know my heart. It's part of, I'm still kind of formulating my speech to them, even if I'm going to do it. It's like, I have yelled at you like my own kids, right? I have gotten to know you as well as my nieces and nephews. And, your parents have welcomed me like I was an old friend that's, had been gone for a couple of years. So yeah, we have this tough exterior, but it's like, we're kind of mushy on the inside.
Yes, we are. And you've let the mush cat out of the bag with me a few times. I really appreciated what you said to me on the phone the other night.
Yeah.
You know what you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm gonna cry again. It's so at the surface.
But can I just tell you something? And I'm sorry, I'm putting my business on blast. Menopause, this age range, it's a lot of tears. I've heard from the elders, it's a lot of tears. I'm like, no one told me about this.
Wait, we didn't talk about that much on our phone call the other night. Oh, we were talking about something else, but that's part of it. I don't know that anyone, hi Isabella, if you're still here listening, I don't know if anybody wants to hear about this, but you and I need to catch up because I've been down the menopause rabbit hole. So
So have
we'll
I.
have when I just got back for those listening to I just got back from San Francisco, and the first thing all my ladies said to me is, "You're not on hormones yet." So, well, sorry, this is so TMI for Sidewalk. No, this is cool. Hey, so I know we have to wrap up here soon, but I want to bring it back because the people might go, Why are
Where did
two
it go?
friends? Why are two friends chatting? Like I'm listening to two ladies chatting." And there's two things why I wanted you on. I mean, it really is great to have you be our first guest for the month. It feels like supportive to me, so thank you for that.
And I
Truly,
am honored.
and I get to spend time with you, which is great. But I have to say, I want people to recognize that they come to Sidewalk Talk and I call it drive-by volunteering. They come in and pop in and do it once. I'm like, don't do that. Come and like be part of a community and join a chapter or start a chapter, because I'm telling you, Esther and Carrie, the
Mm-hmm.
New York
In New
chapter
York.
leader,
Yes.
and Esther from DC, they don't chapter lead anymore. But I am, I, I don't know. I think Carrie and I have traded 15 texts today already. I mean, we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is we text each other, and I go to bed at night, and they're usually the last people that I text, right? And then I have a friend, Joe, who was part of the UK team, and she came out to visit me in San Francisco. And I mean, she is the person, I mean, she's like my sister. The poor one, she like hears from me too much. She's like, here's all the anxiety. She's like, dude, you need to like get some therapy or some hormones. But I guess what I wanted to say is this is really a place. We're non-affiliated with any religion. We're not affiliated with any political organization. But like church used to be, it does start to feel like you meet people and you bond and you make
And
friends here
community.
too. It's a community.
It's a
And that's my
community.
favorite part of it.
Can I tell you what I learned from Sidewalk Talk?
Ooh.
What I learned and what I learned from you
Mm.
is, and I love this phrase that you always say, listen with an open heart.
Mm.
And one of the things, I didn't do it that much this year, but a lot of what I do with the kids is when I do mediation, I have them face each other and they have to listen. And you must listen with your eyes closed and your heart open.
Ooh.
So I always tell them that. And anytime I say that to them, I hear your voice. Listen with an open heart. And 9 times out of 10, after each person says the story, I'm like, what did you hear them say? And they're like, oh, they said this, this, and this. I'm like, did they say that? Or did they say this? That kind of thing. And usually it's a misunderstanding. But I always say, I learned that from you, that listen with an open heart.
Mm. Yeah, we're talking a lot about the tenderness of the heart in this conversation, huh?
Mm-hmm.
One last thing. What do you think makes a good friend?
What
I
makes a
know
good
it's a big
friend?
question.
It's a big question. I will say, what makes specifically us good friends? A,
I didn't say it
we're
had to be
always,
about us, but it
but
could
I
be.
am answering it about us.
Okay. I'll listen and receive with an open heart.
Okay. So I feel like we're on the same wavelength, right? So I might say, I haven't heard from Traci in a while. Let me just reach out. Or you might say, oh, I haven't touched base in a while. Let me reach out. And it could be a month, it could be 6 weeks, it could be 2 months. But the day we pick up the phone or the day we leave that message, it's as if we spoke yesterday and as no time has passed. That to me is a true bond of a friendship. I mean, you have friends that, I call them my 3 a.m. ride or die, like, listen, bring, just show up. Those are good friends too,
Bring
but
tequila.
bring the dirty plates. So you have those friends, right? But then you have friends that you make bonds with. And I feel like our friendship, it transcends the word friendship. Like I think we have a bond. I think that we are bonded like forever and for life. You know what I mean? Like when we're 80 years old, my daughter will be like, remember your friend Miss Traci in Germany? That kind of thing. Work friends, you have your work friends. Some of them you'll keep forever, but I would say 98% of them, they're going to be work friends. And once you leave that job, you're never going to see them again. You know what I mean? And the funniest thing, you and I have never seen each other in person.
The big reveal. But we're going to. Well, you tried to, and then I got COVID when I was in DC.
I was so pissed. I was
You
like,
had to lose that flight money. But I'm going to see you this year for the first time.
Yes.
You have to come a week early now.
I can't wait.
A week before your wedding.
Yeah. And I can't, like, I'm excited, like, for when you come down, and I just want to be on the sidewalk listening. Like, what is that going to be like? Like, who are you going to recruit? That kind of thing. What is that going to look like?
I'm going to listen through the South. I think I'll finish in Georgia.
Okay.
Since I'm going to be there for your wedding, I think I'm going to go through South Carolina, probably North Florida, Oklahoma.
But my wedding is in New York. It's not going to be in Georgia.
Oh, it is.
It's in New York.
I've got everything wrong.
It's going to be in New York.
We'll talk about this
We'll
later.
talk about that.
Well, that'll be fun. That's a cheaper flight for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. Any last parting words?
Well, there's a way that we have a ritual for how we end this conversation, which is the parting words that you're going to offer are to Sidewalk Talk listeners, and they're either words of wisdom or a wish for them, because there's still people that get out there more regularly than I do in my non-German speaking self.
So my wish or piece of information for the Sidewalk Talk listeners are just listen. Just listen. Be comfortable with saying nothing. And, attentively look them in their eye and, smile. And that nonverbal sometimes speaks volumes. Because, when people tell you a problem, like you want to solve it for them, but sometimes they already know the solution. They just want to say it, and a lot of people feel safe saying it to a stranger. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we use words, it may come out sounding like judgment, how the other person receives it. That's not the intention, but just listen. Mm-hmm. And if you don't offer anything and say nothing, just say, "Oh my God, thank you for trusting me with your story. I'm honored." That's my parting words and advice.
Everyone, thanks for being a voyeur on my friendship with Lorraine. And Lorraine, thanks for being here and talking about
Thank you for having me. Yay.
And happy birthday to Sidewalk Talk. Oh, that is so very Taylor Swift of you.
The kids do that all the time. I work in middle school, so they're like, "Miss Messiah, we love you." So I work in middle school. It helps keep me young.
I'm going to end the stream, but you and I have to stay here and chat.
Okay.
Bye, guys.